Hello, everybody. Welcome to this post-Derby edition of the Sunday Sports Buzz, presented by 1450 WXVW, also simulcast on 96.1 FM, the Big X Sports Radio. And the Big X has been giving great coverage of everything going on at Churchill Downs this week. And we're going to continue that tonight as our yearly post-Derby guest, really. Joey Adams is with us. Joey is the founder and he runs the TripleCrownSelections.com. TripleCrownSelections.com. He's a regular out at the track. He's one of our horse racing experts. Joey, before we get to the race, Justify, the winner, the favorite, going into the race, everybody said this could be a super horse. Why should we have known? Why should we have known this was a lock? Justify's going to win this race.
You know, hindsight's 20/20, like they always say, but I don't know. I mean, Baffert, he was high on this horse from the very beginning before it ever made his first start. And you know, there's the story out there that the clocker out at Santa Anita called Darren Rogers at Churchill and said, "Hey, this horse is coming to you," before he ever ran his first race. And I don't know. I mean, you know, some horses just have that, you know, aura about them. But I mean, you never know. I mean, you know, 136 years since a horse won the Derby. You know, 1882 since Apollo won without racing as a 2-year-old. I mean, this horse just ran its first race 3 months ago.
That's crazy. February 17th or 18th was the first race for this horse. 11 weeks. That's all it's been racing. I mean, how can a horse? You must be a super horse if you can just, as a beginner, win the biggest race in the world. Now 4-0, and we're going to watch the race here and going to let you analyze, you know, Justify and how I thought he dominated. I thought he controlled the entire race, to be honest with you. It
was never, I mean, you know, he gets a great break here from post number 7. Mike Smith gets him up near the front. And promises fulfilled for post number 3. Everybody knew he was going to the lead. But Justify sitting right there in the orange saddlecloth. I mean, he's perfect.
He's where he wants to be.
Right, exactly where he wants to be.
That's where in the Santa Anita Derby, which he won pretty easily over Bolt Doro, he was in the front like this the entire time. And that was cruised.
Yeah, that was really the only knock, if there was one, is that, you know, in California he's been facing small fields. He's had everything his own way, never had any trouble, and everybody kept saying, well, what happens in a 20-horse field? Well, he gets a great start, and he's sitting perfect. He doesn't have, there's no mud being kicked on him. There's nobody in his way. Now, they ran fast early.
I was going to say, did the quick, I mean, it was a super fast pace.
It was early until they got, well, when I saw 45-3, I thought, all right, this could be some trouble. But then from the half mile to the 6 furlongs, it was 25-2, and then it was almost another 26 seconds. So that second half mile was really slow.
Who's getting in position here? When you're watching the race, you're like, okay, this horse might be getting in position to make a run.
Yeah, well, Bolt Doro I think it's the pink and blue on the far outside. He was in perfect position throughout. He had nothing. Here's Good Magic coming up in the yellow on the far outside. And for a second there, it's like, okay, he's got the biggest shot. Audible got in some traffic on the back stretch, and then he runs into traffic here again in the stretch, and he comes running late and barely gets beat for second. And,
which killed my exacta. I had to Justify Audible exactly.
Yeah, man. He was my top pick, and so I wish he would have got second as well. But I mean, you know, what
happened to Audible in the beginning?
He broke okay, and then he just, you know, he was down inside, and he ran into some traffic on the backstretch, and then when he started making his move on the turn, it looked like he had some momentum and just ran into traffic again, had to stop a little bit and kind of re-brake. And, I mean, if that race is 50 yards further, he's easily second.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure he was going to ever beat
You know, it was kind of surprising. You mentioned the fast first half mile. But the race finished 2:04. I mean, they really slowed down the second part of the race.
Yeah, it was really, really slow. I mean, a lot of that has to do with the track. I was just really surprised, you know, when they went 45 and changed to the half, and then they get, you know, pretty close going into the far turn. No one was really making a move. I mean, no one was. I don't know if they were just waiting. And, jockeys have these internal time clocks in their head, and they know when they're going fast. And I don't know if, some of them were just like, okay, it's been really fast, and they're gonna start to come back to us, and Justified just never did. I mean, Promises Fulfilled, I think he finished 15th. So he was done.
You know what was interesting to me is you had 3 of the top horses right up front. The next group of horses was really all the long shots.
Yeah.
And I mean, they grouped together. I did bet, and I gotten a tip from one of my horse guys, Flame Away, maybe in the mud. Flame Away, who was getting close. My boy Jack was somebody I liked all along.
Right.
Instilled Regard comes in 4th. Actually, Gary Dimling liked that horse on our show last week. But it was a big group of long shots, and then you had some of those favorites at the very back who really were disappointed.
Well, I mean, probably most disappointing of all was Mendelssohn, the horse from Dubai. I mean, he basically got taken out of the race in, leaving the gate, and then he rushed up. They rode him hard to get position, but he was done. And that's 2 years in a row. Remember last year we were on the show. We watched Thunder Snow come acting like a rodeo horse coming out of the gate. So, but Mendelssohn ended up finishing last. I liked Magna Moon. He was, in the Final Four. Noble Indy was back there. It was just, it ran like a lot of people thought would Justify, and then everybody else. And it was basically, a lot of people thought it was going to be a race for second, and that's what it turned out to be.
All right, this is 6 years in a row now. The favorite wins the Derby. 6 years since the point system put in place. To me, that's too many times to be a coincidence.
Yeah.
Explain it. Why is it happening?
I don't know. We try to explain this every year, don't we? I mean, It's just, I think it's just because, the bettors. I mean, I'm not talking about the people that show up for the Derby and just, bet once or twice a year. The people that know, because of the point system, these horses run against each other really from January. I mean, even go back to November when Good Reward, or Good Magic won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. I mean, and so, he was the top 2-year-old heading in this year. And these horses start running against each other, and they start accumulating points. And so you kind of know who's who and what you're, we don't have Giacomo anymore. That was, Mike Smith, he won the Derby yesterday. That's his only other Derby wins, Giacomo. Yeah. It was 50-1 or whatever he was, but.
Don't mind that bird. It's been a while,
It's just, you kind of know what these horses, what their ceiling is.
So it's the scouting. It's like if you put it in football terms or baseball terms, the scouting has gotten better, in your opinion? You just, the experts are able to evaluate horses a little bit better?
Yeah, I mean, they're not racing a ton, but, you see Justify run 3 times, and I mean, he handled Bolt Doro pretty handily in the Santa Anita Derby. I don't.
He did. It was never in doubt.
And everybody, kind of starts to make excuses for horses that lose. But he ran second. He was just second best that day. So going into the Derby, I'm not sure where, unless you just thought, okay, the 2-year-old curse. I'm not sure where you would think, okay, Bolt Doro is suddenly 4 lengths better than Justified.
And you know what? In watching the Santa Anita Derby, and I love Jerry Bailey, but he even didn't give. He wasn't as high on Justify's win in that, even after watching it. Like, Bolt Doro, to me, I'm throwing him out. Immediately after I saw that race. I'm like, he wasn't even close, in my opinion, to Justify. And Justify dominated this one kind of the same way.
Yeah, he did. I mean, it was.
And it was.
Yeah, it was. And, I wasn't sold. I didn't like him yesterday. It had nothing to do with him not racing as a 2-year-old or anything.
Horses, maybe?
I just didn't think he, I run numbers, and I can tell you what every horse runs at every point in a race. And he just hasn't had run as fast as others just based on raw speed, and visually super impressive. But when you put his time against some others, he wasn't the overwhelming favorite that everybody says it was. So when you're in the Derby, you're looking for value, obviously, and you bet based on that. You take a shot, and he was just the best horse yesterday, no doubt.
All right, we're here with Joey Adams, TripleCrownSelections.com. We're going to talk pretty much all horse racing tonight with Joey, so stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're back with Joey Adams, TripleCrownSelections.com. He's been handicapping out Churchill Downs for many years. One heck of a baseball player, too, growing up. This was the guy at Trinity.
Long time ago.
Oh, man, and Louisville. So Joey's here with us tonight. And we're talking about Justify. You can tell my voice is gone. Derby weekend, losing my voice. But Justify wins the Derby, the favorite. Joey, who did you bet? Tell me who you bet and why you bet it in the race.
My top pick in the Derby was Audible. I thought his races in Florida were really, really good. I thought he beat better horses in his races. I mean, in one of his races, he was up close to the lead. He won it easy. And then the Florida Derby, he granted the pace in that race was just insane. But he dropped way out of it and then circled horses and won easy again. And I like that. I like that he showed some versatility. He didn't necessarily have things his own way every time out. And based on times, and I thought he was as fast as any horse in the race yesterday. And he was obviously a much better price than Justify. So
yeah, better value.
when you're trying to hit a race like the Derby or the Breeders' Cup, you're searching for value. And it turns out he got beat a neck for second and had a much worse trip than the first two finishers. But now whether he would have won or not, I don't know. But I'll probably bet him back in the Preakness.
Yeah, Justify, people have been talking about him as maybe another super horse. Mm-hmm. Of course, he has Bob Baffert, who has had horses like him before. Yep. Had American Pharoah, won the Triple Crown, has every Derby winner Bob's had has won the Preakness, too. So he's always in a position to win the Triple Crown. And you've heard the legends of the Clocker, who saw this horse, and saw Pharoah, too, back then, and knew that was going to be that type of horse. How can you tell? How can you tell? How can you tell when you have a horse like that? And is this one of those, in your opinion?
Well, I'm a bigger believer now than I was Friday.
More evidence. You got more evidence now.
Because granted, he had a great trip in the Derby, but a lot of that is just because of how athletic he is, how talented he is. He doesn't seem to get himself in trouble. And, Mike, he broke like a shot, like he was supposed to, straight line, and Mike Smith put him where he was. And, that was a fast pace. That was a fast pace for a 1.25 mile race. And the horse that he was basically dueling with, throws in the towel and finishes 15th. And Justify goes on and wins the race. So even though the last 6 furlongs of the Derby was really, really slow, he did a lot of.
He maintained his lead, I thought, and even when challenged a bit, I thought he pulled away a little bit, even at that point.
Which is kind of scary, because, it's not often that you see horses win the Derby without being, fully extended, and I'm not sure he was. I'm not sure he was.
Yeah, I was reading about Justify a little today. Justify is a big horse, 100 pounds heavier than even American Pharoah. Is there something? Is it when you're looking at a horse, bigger just means more muscle, more filled out? Is that better, or or light on the feet? What are you looking for?
Yeah, it depends. If you want a horse that's going to go, or a route of ground, as they call it, distance, you want to see some muscles throughout the body. If you're looking for a sprinter, you want to see a big rear end. If you're looking at a turf horse, you kind of don't want them necessarily to be really huge. You're looking for flat feet, just different things, different horses. But I haven't seen him in person. I didn't go out this week during the mornings, but what I've seen, he looks like a racehorse. There's all racehorses that look like racehorses, and he looks like LeBron James.
All right, Bob Baffert. And I always think it's more interesting when Bob's involved in the Derby. He's the biggest star in the sport. Mm-hmm. He's got that cool factor, I think, and handles the spotlight great. Bob, now 5 Derby wins. Now, what is it about Bob Baffert? Is he like, and I'm going to say Belichick or Saban, and they're both great, but like Belichick, you kind of have the system. And then Saban, even though he has a great system, he just gets to pick the best players, let's say. Is it the Baffert system with the horses, you think, or that the best ones, he gets his pick of the best ones. What is it more? What is it about Bob Baffert that he's winning these big races?
Yeah, he knows what he's doing, obviously.
Yeah.
And having won a Derby and then 2 and then 3, he knows what it takes. Not that other trainers don't, but I mean, you look at Todd Pletcher, who is year in, year out, the top. He earns more money than any other trainer. He started 52 after yesterday, 52 horses in the Derby, and he's got 2 wins. So, you know, Baffert hasn't started nearly that many, and he's got 5. He's now second all time. Ben Jones has 6. Baffert will get it at some point. But, I mean, Justify, they paid $500,000 for him, which is not, I mean, that's not cheap, but there were more expensive horses in the race. I mean, Mendelssohn, they paid $3 million for him. So, obviously, you know, there's no success based on what you, I mean, Real Quiet they paid $18,000 when he won the Derby. So, Baffert just, he gets the most out of his horses. And he doesn't run a whole lot of horses on turf. You know, sprints, he's got good sprinters, he's got good 3-year-olds, he's got good older horses. I mean, he had Opportunity here this weekend.
That horse is great horses. Arrogate.
And
you know what? It was the moment he won his first. He won it the very next year. I mean, he was immediately good in the Derby, and he's won 6 Preaknesses. On that big stage, man, he does shine in that moment.
Thing, you know, and I mean, Bob's he's a super nice guy.
He seems like it.
And Mike Smith is one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. So, you know, you got to be happy for them. And it's going to be great TV for the next 2 weeks and then probably for the next 3 weeks after that. But, you know, Baffert doesn't, he doesn't do like, you know, like Pletcher. He doesn't have 300 horses at 4 or 5 different racetracks. He's in California. Now, he'll get on a plane and he'll go to New York or he'll go to Oakland or he'll come to Kentucky if he's got, you know, the horse for a particular race. But he does his own thing, and he's a great personality, and he's got a system that works.
He's a great face for the sport,
right.
I think. Mike Smith, you mentioned that, you know, second oldest jockey now to win the Derby. You know what was amazing to me? Because I always think of Mike Smith riding the best horses. His only other Derby win was the longest of long shots, Giacomo.
Right.
That was a shock to me just to hear that again. That this guy who always is on, like when Mike Smith's on a horse, I'm like, you know what, that's going to be one of the top ones in this race.
It is because he's 52 years old now, and he doesn't have to do this. He's not out there grinding, you know, race after race. He's not riding $15,000 claimers. If he is ever in a race like that, you go to the window because you know, hey, it's a pretty good shot.
It's going to be a good shot to win.
You know, he rides horses that are, I mean, you know, Zenyatta, you know, horses like that he knows, okay, if I'm gonna keep doing this at 52 years old, then I'm gonna make sure I'm on good horses. And he's earned the right to do that. He's a Hall of Famer. He's still one of the best in the business, and he's a super nice guy.
Yeah. All right, we're here with Joey Adams. More horse racing in a moment. The Sunday Sports Buzz. Greg Brom and Joey Adams back on this post-Derby edition of the Sunday Sports Buzz, brought to you by 1450 and 96.1, the Big X Sports Radio. Justify first, Good Magic second, Audible third in the 144th Kentucky Derby. Last week we had Gary Dimling on the show. On Friday he had a big day. He hit for 12,000 on Friday. So he had every pick 5 and pick 4. He also had the Oaks Derby double. Had both winners in that, those who were both favorites ended up winning that race. He had them both here on the show. And we're here with Joey. And
who should have been here Friday, apparently.
Yes, that's right. Oh, man. Yeah. Hey, talk about that ownership group. What do you know about the ownership group for Justify?
Well, I mean, there's 4 or 5 different single owners, and then there's like partnership owners inside the partnership. One of the owners, Sal Kumi, I think is his name. He actually is part owner of the filly that won the Oaks. So he's the first owner to win the Oaks and the Derby in the same year since, I think, 1952.
Wow.
So it was a big weekend for him, obviously. But, you know, there's so many racing partnerships these days. You
It
get
seems
the
like, how does it
partnership.
work? I know Starlight was part of this
Yeah.
with Windstar Farm.
Yeah.
Starlight has a lot of local, I guess, connections. Windstar Farm,
Yep.
China
Horse Group.
Horse Group, and
For Justify, but basically it's they sell shares. You buy a share, and then you own a 0.5% or 1%, whatever, how many ever shares they in the horses that they will manage. Now, for instance, like Warriors Club, who got beat a neck in the Churchill Downs Stakes, he's that Churchill Downs ownership group horse. So there's 500 owners of that horse.
Yeah.
I think they all put up a couple $100 a piece. So they own a piece of that horse. So it'd been a huge thrill for them if he would have won on Saturday. But he's earned over probably close to $700,000. So basically, you're buying into a pool, and they take that. They buy horses. A lot of them you don't have to pay any training fees or anything like that. You just basically buy in and become an owner that way.
all right, the weather, and it was kind of surprising that it rained all day Saturday. The wettest Derby day on record, rained during the race, which I don't know. I remember that happening too often. But what effect were you expecting it to have, and what effect do you think it had?
Well, I mean, watching the earlier races, there didn't seem to be, a lot of times you'll get a certain bias based on, because most racetracks, when it gets really, really wet, they will drain. They look flat. They look flat on TV, but they're really not. They're kind of banked.
Okay.
So
like a car race track
right,
is.
not nearly to that degree, but and a lot of times when they drain, obviously they'll drain towards the rail. So the rail will get really deep and gooey. So a lot of times you'll see horses that are doing better will race away from the rail. It didn't seem to really have an effect on the earlier race yet. And there were some speed horses. There were some horses come from out of it. But clearly, just based on some of the performances, you have to just imagine some of those horses just didn't like it, especially horses that come from behind horses, because they're getting mud and the jockeys probably pick up 10, 15 pounds of mud in a race that long before, and they've got 6, 7 pairs of goggles. A lot of horses, they come back and they get mud in their eye. I mean, sometimes they come back, their eyes are so full of mud they can't see. So it really, but Justify, if you're as good as he is, and you're up in the front, Mike Smith, he might not have had to clean his silks today. He was just, he was clean. He was away from the splashback. He was away from other horses. But some of those horses, some of those horses are not nearly as bad as they ran yesterday, even the long shots.
I was going to say, Mendelssohn had a bad trip, but who actually ran good in the middle of the pack? You're like, that was a really good, well-run race for somebody that maybe didn't finish in the money. And then who else besides Mendelssohn you think just had, boy, that was a bad
And still regard ran huge, because he got bounced around at the start. I mean, he was 89-1 or something. I mean, he only got in because another horse scratched, late in the week. So he was really a deserving long shot. And he got bounced around early coming out of the gate. For him to finish fourth was huge. I thought Bravazzo, who I actually liked a little bit, he ran well to be sixth. My boy Jack, I was out there Friday, and the first time they flashed the Derby odds, and
what happened there? 30-1 to 6-1.
Yeah, I'm like, what is going on? And a lot of times you'll see that in like normal races, and people will bet early, and then the odds will drift back up. But he never did. And he 5 or 6 to 1 at post, somewhere like that post time. I couldn't see it.
Have you seen many that go from 30-1 to 5 to 6 to 1?
Not in a race like that where there's so much money. That's a lot of money. Now, if you're out at Churchill on a Thursday and there's a horse that's 20-1 and he goes down to 5-1, that may be a couple $1,000s because the pools are not huge.
Yeah.
But they had record wagering yesterday despite the weather.
Yeah.
So when a horse takes that big a drop and then he stays there, that means that somebody bet a lot of money early and people are continuing to bet on him. Outside of Justify, he was really the only horse they bet solid for 2 days.
I know what happened. I was on the backside Monday with my brother Brian, and we actually picked my boy Jack.
Oh, was that it?
Monday on the radio. We were on E.J. Clark's show on 1450. We both picked my boy Jack. I didn't mean to skew the odds for the week, Joey. You know, my expert. The reason I did it was because they were the brothers.
Right.
It was the brother trader and the brother jockey. Like, okay, the brothers are going to pick the brothers. That was my expert reason.
Yeah, and then when you placed your bet on Friday, that drove the.
I did. I threw it. I distorted the whole pot.
But that was of all of the wagering, that was really the one that surprised me the most, because he went down Friday, and he stayed down. Now Mendelssohn, he
was early in the week, man. Favorite. I thought he might challenge being the favorite.
He was. I was surprised when they made him the second choice. I mean, I knew he was talented. I knew he was, highly regarded. But still, to make a horse like that from Dubai, the morning line second choice was a big step. And but he got wiped out at the beginning. Magnum Moon came over and actually hit Instilled Regard, and then hit Mendelssohn. And I wouldn't be surprised that if he came out okay from yesterday, no, bruises or nicks or anything like that, I wouldn't be surprised to see him come back for the Belmont.
Okay.
Because I know they expected a lot. I know they probably did not.
They're maybe a little embarrassed just by the showing. Yeah, we got something to prove.
They couldn't have liked the weather, because he had never seen anything like that. And I think they were really expecting him to run big. Now, whether he was good enough to win or not, based on what we saw from Justify, who knows? But clearly, they didn't come over here to finish 20th.
Yeah.
And that's where they.
And now he's here. Yeah, you might as well take your swings.
Yeah,
at the plate. Now that you're over here,
right.
you might as well take at least one more swing.
Yeah, I mean, and if anybody's going to get a mile and a half other than Justify, I mean, it's probably going to be him.
All right, we're here with Joey Adams. We come back. We're going to look ahead to the Preakness with Joey, see who he thinks might run, how he thinks that's going to play out here at the Sunday Sports Buzz. Greg Brom and Joey Adams here tonight. Joey's website, triplecrownselections.com. He's going to have that thing going throughout the Triple Crown races. Make sure you go to that website. His son Joseph is here tonight too. He had the winner, won some money himself on Derby Day. So like father, like son, right?
No, it's just like son.
All right, we're talking Justify with an impressive win in the Kentucky Derby. Now it's on to the Preakness, okay? And I think it's become pretty standard probably the last decade. A lot of the horses from the Derby skip the Preakness, and if they're coming back, they'll come back when the Belmont 5 weeks down the road, if they come back at all.
Right.
A lot of times there's a whole new crop of horses. Who do you think will be the biggest challengers in the Preakness to Justify?
Well, I mean, the only horses that, as of this morning, we're going to go unless something, amiss happens. You've got the runner-up Good Magic, the third place Audible, Bravazzo, Instilled Regard. I mean, really, those are the only four that you could say were definite right now, barring something.
I was going to say D. Wayne's going. He's taking his shot.
And there'll be a couple more that they'll regroup here in the next week or so, and then because it's shaping up right now. I mean, you're 7-8 horses mowed. I mean, there'll be some new faces.
And I'll give you a couple that I've read about so far. Sporting Chance is another D. Wayne Lucas horse that may run. Quip, who was second in the Arkansas Derby, possible. Diamond King is another horse. I don't know if familiar with any of those. Of course, Bravazzo. Like you said, it's not the Preakness fields haven't been great in the last several years. It's been kind of you've had a lot of Derby winners win that Preakness, and it hadn't been that challenging.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to scare Justify out of that group, right?
No, and I mean, out of that group that you just mentioned, I mean, Quip is by far the best of that group. He won the Tampa Bay Derby earlier this year. He ran second in the Arkansas Derby. And, I mean, they just decided to pass on – and hats off to them. Because, I mean, you know, if you get a chance to run the Derby, 99% of owners and trainers, they're going to go because it may be the only chance. But they said, no, we're going to pass the Derby and we're going to point for the Preakness. So whatever he has to offer, you'll see it that day. I just don't know if it's that. I mean, he does have a running style where he'll race up front. He can keep Justify and reach. I mean, Magnum Moon beat him pretty good in Arkansas. Even though he was second, I just don't know if he's that good or not.
Yeah, and I mean, I would anticipate, you know, the way Justify even runs, he's an up-front runner.
Yeah.
And the Preakness is shorter. I mean,
Shorter.
It seems to me when I've watched it, you don't see somebody coming way off the pace to win the Preakness. You're usually there, you're in front the whole time, and you hang on because you have enough in the tank. Race isn't another eighth of the mile or whatever it is.
Yeah, they're actually going, you know, a mile and 3/16, which is shorter than the Derby. And I remember a couple years ago, they had that huge rainstorm right before.
Pharaoh.
Yeah, American Pharaoh. But I mean, even if that happens now, it's like, what's the big deal?
No big deal. You're definitely loading up on Justify at that point. After
it's like, they're not going to bother him now. The only problem, obviously, is that there's, you know, far fewer horses that run, and so you get $7 for him to win yesterday.
Yeah.
He'll be 2 to 5.
Sure.
So
definitely,
if you didn't bet him yesterday, right here, you certainly can't bet him in the Preakness.
No.
Even though you may be rooting for him to win, it's just from a wagering standpoint, you don't do it.
Well, and you know, I guess it does remain to be seen, as well as we move on to the Belmont. You know, Pharaoh did it, and nobody. I'd almost come to the conclusion it's not going to happen. That 5 weeks is too hard now to run 3 races, especially when your main competitors in the Derby are skipping the second leg and coming back much fresher than you. And has Pharaoh proved it wrong? Has he thrown that theory just out the window? We have a new paradigm now. It can be done, so now it will happen much more often because it was shown to be done. Is that where we sit now, you think?
I don't know if it's going to be done a lot more often. I just think he was a special horse. And maybe Justify is, you know, a special horse like he is. It's just so hard. I mean, you can train and you can have perfect health and perfect weather, and it still doesn't guarantee success. I mean, just like Friday, you know, the horse Always Dreaming who won last year's Derby, you know, he ran Friday, didn't even hit the board in a minor stakes race. He hasn't won a race since the Derby, and he's not the only one recently. So the list of Derby winners to not either race again or win again is getting to be pretty long in itself. So, you know, you have just as good a chance of winning the Triple Crown as you do never winning again.
You speak of Always Dreaming. You know, looking at Lee won yesterday. Looking at Lee, I won some money on him in the exacta. I was glad to see him come and win after he won some money for some people the year before by coming in second.
Yeah, and I mean that was his first win since 2016.
Really?
And I mean he's run some big races and you know some seconds and thirds, but he hasn't won.
What else on the card over the weekend? You know, on Saturday, did you have anything on the Funny Duck? No. 2 long shots coming, and that paid a fortune. The trial was $17,000.
Yeah, that was, and I was actually sitting in my living room when that race went off, and naturally, given the weather, you know, I can't remember Mike Tirico or Jerry Bailey or one of those guys like, oh, that duck was made for water. I'm like, hey, come on, that was just too obvious. But you know that horse, his last 4 races were on turf. He ran 1 time on dirt, and it was not a good race at all. So. He was one of those implausible long shots that you can look back and say, I still wouldn't have had it. Now, in the race right before the Derby, that turf race, I did like Yoshida. He was really good last year. He hadn't been out since November, and it was a tough spot for him to come back in, but Bill Mott was bringing him back in that spot, so I was a little more confident. So he was probably my best pick of the weekend that actually won.
I'll tell you what, you talk about Bill Mott. He had Hofburg in the Derby, and that was a horse that had a little bit of buzz.
Yep.
Did you like it?
Not to win. I mean, when he ran second to Audible in the Florida Derby, it was his third race. It was really good effort, but he was actually losing ground to Audible in the stretch, and he could have taken another step forward, but at the same time, so could Audible. So I wasn't convinced he was there yet. But Bill Mott, he just doesn't. For as good as he is, and the horses he's had, and the success he's only had 9 or 10 Derby starters. He's not going to push to get there. So when he put him in there, you had to respect him. I could have easily seen him second, third, fourth. I just didn't know if he was ready. And I think he'll be really good later in the year, and especially next year. I just didn't know if he was ready for that.
All right, we're here talking the Triple Crown, really, with Joey Adams from TripleCrownSelections.com. We'll be back in a moment. Greg Brom back with Joey Adams, TripleCrownSelections.com. Hey, if somebody goes to your website, what are they going to get? What are they going to get from TripleCrownSelections.com?
Like on big days like this, you're going to get my rundown of every race on the card. I have comments for every horse in every race, give you wagering strategy, different ways to play the race. I'll tell you why I like horses, why I don't like them. So, it's a good guide to kind of help you understand what's going on during each race.
One thing I think, and I was thinking about this the other day, because we've talked on this show before about, how to make horse racing more mainstream or how to juice up the sport a bit. I think I've even suggested, which now I don't know if I like it, I've suggested maybe once every 5 years running a Derby at night, just as a rotational thing. Mix it up, maybe get more eyeballs, even though the ratings are probably good every year. And NBC, I think, does a great job on the broadcast.
Yeah, they do.
Don't you? I mean, I think the horse racing, the quality of their announcers and broadcasts is one of the top.
Yeah.
But one thing I think would help me, the racing form, and that's what your website probably does for people, is make it to where a regular person can walk off the street and read it.
Yeah.
If there was some way to make that information more user-friendly, kind of like you do in school textbooks for kind of, I hate to say you dumb it down for us, but what do you think about that? Is that an obstacle to people getting into handicapping?
Yeah, it's intimidating. There's a lot of numbers, there's a lot of information to digest, and I mean I kid with people all the time. If I would have spent as much time studying in school as I studied the racing form, I'd be on the Supreme Court.
You would. You'd be a scientist.
To me, it's a puzzle, and there's a lot of numbers in the program or in the racing form. I have a program that I wrote, that I run, and it'll spit out even more numbers, and then just trying to decipher. But in the end, ultimately, it's a 1,200-pound animal ridden by a 105-pound guy, and in 3 inches of rain, so you can do all the homework, and you get Funny Duck come in and pay $84. You just never know. But it's just I think there are tip sheets out there that just kind of, but even some of those are like, they're throwing like variant talk and pace talk. It's just like
analytical.
And I'm going to tell you, look, this horse, he's raced 3 times recently, and he beat 2 other horses. It's pretty basic. Or I'm just going to tell you kind of first glance. I'm not going to tell you, he ran a 22-2 turn time last Thursday at Lone Star Park, because most people are not going to understand what that means. So I'm going to, I'll just kind of, if you read it, you can kind of get at least what each horse in that race is, where they stand. All
right, the Derby is such a great weekend, and it's such a unique culture, I think. What did you think? What do you think about the Derby experience now at Churchill Downs? The weekend, how it unravels, how it's it all comes together.
Yeah.
I think it's still special. It is. It is just a special event. What's your thoughts just on Derby?
The new gate looks nice.
It's big.
You know what? For all of the concern about, the new gates and closing Central, and you can only cross at 3rd Street or 9th Street, we didn't have any trouble getting there. We were there Thursday, and we had a box, and the entire area behind where we were seated, they have an island of probably 50 teller machines, and they had 2 of them open.
Yeah.
They were all empty, and they had food stations and bars closed. So it was frustrating to try to get something to drink or something to eat or to place a bet. I mean, I made one bet all day on Thursday because it was so frustrating from a service standpoint. And then on Friday, we went to the infield, and it was no lines. I mean, mutual clerks sitting there with nobody in front of them. The crowd was really down. And I don't know if it's because, it's now $60 and $80 just to walk in the gate. That's a lot of money to,
For the infield goer, and what that usually used to be was
Yeah.
the young person, the young people. And as part of the event now, Papa John's Cardinal Stadium is as crowded as the infield with young people on Derby Day now.
And I was telling a buddy of mine, if you go to Keeneland, they've now got that whole tailgate area out back on the hill. They've got the big screen. You can tailgate. They've got.
Are they they're taking bets out there?
Oh yeah. And even on Derby Day, they have drive-through betting at Keeneland. You can just drive through and make your wagers to head on out. And I was telling a buddy of mine, because we parked there Friday, I said if Churchill did something like that in the parking lot at Papa John's, it would be a huge hit. It would be a huge hit. I don't know. I just, I get on here every year and I just rail against Churchill Downs. But, their stock's at an all-time high, so they're doing what they're supposed to do.
It's a magnificent facility.
It's amazing.
It's magnificent.
I just wish that their customer service for the lay people.
I think, and here's the thing on Thurby now. Thurby is huge. It's grown. They probably can't even imagine how big it's gotten.
Yeah.
It is now what Oaks was 15 years ago. There's no doubt. Yep. I mean, I noticed no difference in the paddock crowd on Thursday or from Thursday and Friday.
Right.
So Thurby's huge now. I mean, the week is going to begin on Tuesday pretty soon. So I think they're probably just trying to catch up to the growth.
And I hope
Thurby.
they do. They're kind of under the gun a little bit because they've got the Breeders' Cup coming here in November. And I think if they don't get some of those customer service, logistic issues worked out, that they're gonna take a beating publicly.
Well, I tell you what, though, the infield. One thing about the infield, it's a lot different than it used to be. And I mean, some people say, "Oh, it's not the old infield, the old mud wrestling."
I didn't say any of that.
Free for all.
I wasn't there yesterday.
I tell you what, it's a nice area. You can watch the race. That big screen is phenomenal. You actually can see more if you have just a general admission ticket and you're in the paddock, you don't see as much racing as you do in the infield.
Right.
When you can walk all around the rail and see the horses.
Yeah, and I was out there with a buddy of mine Friday, and we had a great time out there. We were
good weather Friday.
No, I mean, you weren't waiting in lines. There's no crowd. You had plenty of space to spread out. I heard horror stories about how it was yesterday. Just people trying to get in and out of there because of the weather, and it was a mess.
I think the weather did hurt the plan. I love the paddock gate. I did like how big it is.
Yes.
And it was easy to get in. But that bridge with the rain and getting everybody off of there at one time was a little bit more difficult.
Yeah.
Growing pains, I guess.
They're going to take that's going away. I mean, they're taking that down. That was just temporary.
Yeah.
So we get when they open back up. I don't know if it's Wednesday or Thursday. I mean, to me, I mean, the Derby's great. It's fun. It's exciting. But I would just much rather, from a go and enjoy the races standpoint, be out there next Thursday.
Yeah.
Because it's just so much more relaxing.
I do like their Thursday deal they have throughout the summer. Yeah, it's a good deal. All right, hey, we're here with Joey Adams, and we're talking racing. We might talk a couple other sports. Playoffs are going on, the NFL draft, and Joey's a baseball guy, too. And I think that might be the next thing. And it's become a little tradition around here. When Derby's over, kind of Louisville baseball kind of takes over. And we'll just talk about their chances this year as well here at the Sunday Sports Buzz. Joey Adams is with us tonight. We've been talking a lot of horse racing. TripleCrownSelections.com is his website. Also, Joey was a great baseball player and played at Louisville, played at Trinity. And Joey, this time, the last decade with Dan McDonnell, it's kind of a new season that's been developed. It never used to have really a college baseball season, but I think it starts kind of when Derby's over.
Yep.
You look at Dan McDonnell's team. He's gone to the World Series. He's had great top teams in the country. Now, this year, he's kind of in a reloading phase, I think. Had a big win over Vanderbilt this week, their team did. He's kind of perched behind probably the top teams in the country right now, but just in that he's a stalking horse, behind those guys right now. What do you think of Dan's team and their chances this year?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's no doubt that they're down. I mean, they're down from the past few years. But I was thinking about this the other day. It's like, they were in the top 10 early in the season. And, I mean, they've been in the top 25 for most of the year. And yet that's kind of perceived as, it's a down year. I mean, seriously?
Yeah.
I mean, but that's the level that he's taking this baseball program to. If you're in the 20 to 25, it's like, you're having an okay year. And, I mean, they got off to a hot start. They didn't play really great competition. Their pitching has kind of struggled a bit this year. They don't really have the firepower on offense they had. But, I was reading the other day, and I think heading into this weekend, they're one of only 3 teams in the country that have not lost to a team outside the top 100 RPI. The other ones are number 1 Florida and number 2 Stanford. And, I mean, in baseball, on any given day, any given day, you can beat anybody.
And that's the thing about it. Battle tested. They've been there before last year. Like you said, the schedule's tough that they played. And the thing about it is he's probably will Louisville get to host anything, you think? Are they going to get up in that type of category to get at least a regional? I don't know.
Yeah,
that's going to be tough.
They have to finish strong. I mean, that win over Vanderbilt was huge this week. I think
maybe winning the ACC tournament.
They might have to win. They might have to win that tournament to get a regional host. I don't think there's any way they get super regional.
And that's so you're going to have to do it on the road. Yeah. Basically, you're going to have to do it on the road. But it might be a little bit. Take a deep breath this year. We don't have the pressure.
Yeah, I mean we've had our share of heartbreak here.
Woo!
Hosting super regional, so maybe.
Man, a couple years ago, I've never felt it like that home run.
I don't think Nick Birdie has either.
Oh man, but he's got him right there, ready to surprise people a little bit.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me that they go on a long run. Yeah. But they don't have as much room for errors.
I'll tell you what, a big weekend coming up, a couple of weeks. They play Notre Dame here in town to finish off the season. That'll be a big weekend. We got about 30 seconds left in the show. Of course, everybody knows LeBron hitting all those game-winning shots. We'll get to more playoffs next week. Joey, Preakness, give me your pick. And does Justify win the Triple Crown?
Audible and no. Because if I pick Audible, then he can't win the Triple Crown, right? But so I don't know. I could be wrong. I will if he wins the Preakness, I'll.
The thing about Audible, aren't they owned by the same? If I'm Audible's owner, if I'm owning both, I'm keeping Audible out of that race.
Yeah, it's like give him a test, but don't bait him.
That's right. Oh, Joey, thanks a lot, buddy. We'll see you soon. See you next week, Sunday Sports Buzz.